Adamovich, U.S. President of Record Holders Republic, and I'm here with Ron Sarchian doing our first man in the street interview with one of the prolific record holders.
Prolific. Wow.
Get this going. I see here, I looked up some of the records that you have with Record Holders Republic.
Yes.
And let's see, it's like something like 17 records, mostly for smashing things.
Yes.
Sledgehammer, squash, watermelon, pumpkins. You've broken eggs with your feet. You've done cornhole stacking. And it looks like you've broken vinyl records with your hands. Okay, folks, that's what Ron does. Now, before we get into some questions and answers, Ron, give me a little bit about the background and why you entered record breaking and record setting.
Well, I grew up in Detroit, ended up going to college at Northern Michigan University. But when I was a kid growing up, my father passed away when I was about 3 years old. And fortunately for me, I had a boys club directly across the street from where I lived. And that is really what got me into sports and really turned me into more of a competitive kid, and it kept me out of trouble. I lived in a pretty rough neighborhood, and instead of getting involved with drugs and gangs and all that stuff, I decided at a pretty young age that I wanted to play sports, and I was pretty good at it. And I realized that the harder I worked, the better I got. And at some point I realized that, wow, if I'm really good at a certain sport, I might even be able to put myself through college. And so anyway, as a young kid, that's when I really started to get into sports and really enjoyed the competition, the competitiveness of sports. Went to school at Northern Michigan University. Ended up graduating from there with actually an industrial engineering degree. Ended up meeting my wife in college. We ended up getting married and moving to Seattle. And lived in Seattle. I worked for the Boeing company for about 7 years, doing all kinds of different things, from engineering to actually working, building parts out of fiberglass and sheet metal and that sort of thing. And then really got interested in doing stunt work. Met some friends in Seattle, became a member of the Stuntmen's Association in Seattle, and decided that I wanted to change things. I ended up getting a divorce, quit my job, sold my house, and moved down to California and started to work as a stuntman, setting myself on fire, doing fight scenes, driving, all that sort of stuff. And then over time got more into fitness, became a personal trainer, started working as a personal trainer. And then at some time right before I hit 40, I came up with this crazy idea that I really wanted to honor my dad's memory, because I had never done that at age 40. So it took me 37 years to do that, considering the fact that I was 3 when my dad passed away. And I thought, what better way to do that than I picked out what's called the Punch Bag Marathon record at that time, which was 24 hours. And I ended up doing 36 hours. So I beat it by 12 hours, had no idea what I was doing. And this was back in the day when, if you were, I don't know if I can mention the word Guinness, but when I started.
Oh, you can mention it, but you have to make sure you add that little copyright or trademark.
That's right, or I'll get a cease and desist order.
Yeah.
So I ended up breaking that first record, but back then you had to do everything by mail. So if I had a question regarding the guidelines, I mean, even the guidelines, I had to wait 3-4 weeks to get from them. It was really difficult back then. So I gave myself a year to prep and train and get ready for it, and was fortunate enough to be successful on my first record. Now, back then, it's different than it is now. I used to do 1 record a year, and it usually was some sort of endurance record. Obviously, the first record being the Punch Bag Marathon, which was 36 hours straight. And then I would do 1 record attempt every year on my birthday for the first 4 years. And that's kind of how I got into it. And I thought, well, 1 record attempt a year, that's good. I can train for it. It gives me plenty of time to get my questions answered. And so for the first 4 years, 2004, 5, 6, and 7, I broke a record every year on my birthday and was successful. And that's kind of how I got hooked. After that, I took a little break, and, here I am now.
Okay, let me jump into some questions for you. How many world records have you broken versus how many attempts have you made?
Well, I've got several pending right now. I've actually got 3 records pending right now. I've got, I believe I've got 18 or 19 with Record Holders Republic. I've got 16 with Guinness. Several are pending, and I've got one coming up this weekend. I'm going to be attempting to break my own record again, which is the pumpkin smash, the most pumpkin smashed in 1 minute. So we're doing that at a friend's establishment on Halloween, and hopefully I'll break my own record again.
Okay, just so we get the terminology clear for the viewers. Like I often say that I have 44 world records.
Right.
The reality of that on my end is it's about 16 or 17 unique records.
Okay.
I have broken many times.
Right.
So the total number is 44, which means I might have the same one that I broke 3 times. But
Exactly.
how many unique records do you have? How many times that you've broken them? Is it actually you have 17 distinct world records, or 18, whatever it is?
18, and then several of those, like the Punch Bag Marathon, I've broken that twice. The pumpkin smashing record, I've broken that. This hopefully will be 3 times coming up. So distinct records, I think we're looking at probably about 12 or 13.
Okay, and when you re-break, after it's been set,
Right.
in each case, has it been that you broke your own record, or has someone taken yours away? You stepped back up to the plate and took it away from that person?
That's a great question, because my first record was the Punch Bag Marathon when I did 36 hours. And then over the years, I changed it up. And then actually 2 people broke the record. And when you break an endurance record, and David, you might feel the same way, especially when I was younger and I was just starting to do this, I took it personally when somebody broke the record, because I really felt like that record was mine. So when the Punch Bag Marathon record got broken, it was up to 48 hours. I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. I know I can do at least 50 hours. And fortunately enough, I did 50 hours and 9 minutes the second time I broke it. And I get asked this question all the time: what is the most difficult record that you've broken? And that probably was that one, because that was staying up 2 nights in a row punching with no sleep. And that was, I went into some pretty deep water on that one.
Well, let me give you a parallel situation about that occurred to me.
Right.
Some other organization, the one that starts with the letter G,
yeah,
had contacted myself and another prolific knife thrower.
Okay.
And they were playing us against each other. For example, he might have set the record. Then they call me and say, we'd like you to do this record.
Right.
I didn't even know that he had it. And then I did it. I broke what he had. Then they called him and then asked him, and then he broke it.
Yeah.
And at some point, we caught on to what was going on.
Now, were you guys communicating during this time, or were you not?
No.
Okay.
One day I contacted him and I said, listen, this has to stop.
Right.
We're friends, but we don't know each other. We're colleagues.
Right.
We're both performers. And I use this world record concept as part of my billing, as part of who I am.
Right.
And I can't be fighting for my identity if you're going to take it away. Likewise, if you have it, I don't want you fighting for it if I take it away from you.
Right.
So we agreed from that point on that we knew what each of us had, and that if the G people ever contacted us
right.
to break the record, we would make sure that the other person didn't have it. out of mutual respect. And from that point on, we've never broken each other's records.
Got it. Got it. That's smart.
Yeah,
And-
a little
and
aside. I knew you'd appreciate that story.
yeah, yeah. I understand. I've kind of been down that road myself recently, and he has a different concept and a different viewpoint on these records. My record, or my outlook now on world records is, you know what, records are meant to be broken. I didn't feel this way back when I first started breaking records. So, like I said, I was very territorial about my records, and I felt very strongly about holding on to them. But now I kind of feel a little differently. I kind of feel like, you know what, if somebody really has the energy and the drive to do more than 50 hours on a heavy bag, God bless you, you know, and I'll help you. I'll help you get ready. I've actually had several friends who have challenged my records, and I've made the offer to help them. I'm more than willing to help them, but they got to do that. And as you know, David, there's a lot of work behind these records, especially the endurance records. You know, some of these records have taken me 9, 10, a full year to get ready for, especially the punching and kicking records. And, I recently broke the longest duration striking a heavy bag, punching and kicking in June. I did 27 hours straight and threw about 65,000 punches and kicks. And I have an artificial hip too. So I wasn't quite sure how that was going to pan out, but it worked out. And, you never really know where this is going to take you.
Terrific. Okay, I'm going to jump into the next question.
Please do.
I'm combining things here. What do you enjoy and dislike about breaking or setting records?
What I enjoy the most about setting world records is I really enjoy the preparation part. I love the research and development part. I usually pick records where I have to go out and do some research and figure out how things work and figure out how to break the existing record. And I'll do that by, doing a lot of Google research. I'll go back and watch videos of the previous record holders to kind of see how they did things, and then try and improve upon it. So for me, that's the funnest part. I mean, obviously breaking the record is fun because once you break it, you're successful. It feels good to all that work that you did prior, and you broke the record. What I like the least about it is, for the most part, handling the evidence, uploading the evidence, turning in the evidence, and then that whole process of waiting for the record to be approved. For me, that's always been the worst part.
Okay, now I'm going to jump in and give you a side that I do. And I'm sure you'll understand and appreciate it. And it has to also do with the evidence.
Okay.
Anytime I'm about to do or even think I'm going to do a record, every moment of it is videoed.
Okay.
Every moment. Because it might be that one time that I say, okay, this is what I want to do.
Right.
And I set up the camera and I do it. I find at times I could not reproduce it because that one particular time, that one time that I said, let me try this and see how I can do it.
Right.
All the engineering, all the prep had already gone in my head. Then I get up and I do it, and then I say, "Oh, wow, that was pretty good. Let me try that again." And I don't do it as well.
Right.
So the bottom line is, if you record every attempt,
right,
practice attempts, that becomes the evidence.
Sure.
And it doesn't witness statements. Doesn't matter who your witnesses are, because the bottom line is, if the one adjudicating your record is looking at the video because they weren't there to see it when you did it,
right,
that's all the proof in the world.
Right.
No, you can't do anything better than showing me a video of what you did.
Yeah, I agree. I think, video doesn't lie. And, as you know, after your attempt is over, especially like an endurance attempt where I've been up for 2 days straight, and you're not thinking right. You're really not thinking straight. So you always have to go back to the video and go, oh, that's right. I finished at this time, not that time. I did this. I remember that now. the shorter attempts, like the 30-second and the 1 minute, I can pretty much remember everything. But it's, everything needs to be on video. That's the key to everything. It really is.
Okay, I'm going to move on. As I think we both understand the old saying, the old gray mare ain't what she used to be. And as you know,
are you talking about me? Or are you talking about, you referring to yourself, David?
So it's like I realize that I'm slowing down, and I've got these younger bucks looking at that target on my
right,
So
right.
it makes me ask you: have you felt you're done and tired of record breaking, or are you just going to keep on going and keep on ticking?
It's interesting. I had this conversation with my girlfriend the other day because she's usually very supportive, but she gets very annoyed at times, especially on the weekends when I'm doing research and trying to figure things out. I honestly, and I'm in the process of writing a book as well, which we can talk about, later. But I honestly, I do get tired of it at times, and then I find if I take 5 or 6 months off, I start to get that urge again. Then I'll jump back in. But I don't really know. I kind of have to wait and see. But I think I'll always end up being a record breaker. I might not do, like, I've made 9 attempts this year. That's a lot of attempts. That's a lot of planning, a lot of time, a lot of money. But I figured, what, we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's a good time to do stuff like this because we got some free time and you can do that. But honestly, David, I think over time will tell. But I think even if I just go back to doing 1 attempt a year, I'll probably be doing this for the rest of my life.
Very good. And what was your most challenging record and why?
I think the one that I mentioned to you, the most mentally too, physically and mentally challenging, was doing the 50 hours and 9 minutes on the heavy bag because, there was no sleep involved. And that was 2 full nights up punching. And that was difficult because I had never really done that before. And sleep deprivation is a very funny thing. You can't train for sleep deprivation. It doesn't work. You can stay up for 2 or 3 nights, and that doesn't make you any better at staying up for 2 or 3 nights. It just makes you really tired and a little nutty.
As someone that's considering an endurance record like you did, what time frame did you use within an hour that allowed you an off moment or a rest time to grab something to eat or go to the bathroom?
So with the guidelines for endurance records, and like I said, I won't mention the G word again, but those are the guidelines that I tend to follow because they're very precise. You have to be very specific about what you're doing with something like this. So it would basically be a 65-minute hour. So you would work for 60 minutes and then get a 5-minute break. Now, that's a little deceiving because it sounds like I'm going over and sitting in the corner for 5 minutes, but what I'm doing during that 5 minutes, I'm very busy. I'm going to the bathroom, I have a team. I take my gloves off. I go to the bathroom. I come back out. I get on for me, what worked is getting on a recumbent bike and pedaling, and that keeps my lower body, my lower back from, seizing up. And especially after 20, 30 hours, that really does start to happen. And then that's when I also get my nutrition for the next hour. So that 5 minutes goes by really fast, especially when you're trying to eat.
Because I know in some of the other endurance records that I've adjudicated for some people, when you look at the hour as an entity and they had to do 55 minutes in the hour, then they had the 5 minutes to complete the hour. Now, what you're saying is you went full 60 and then tacked on the next 5.
Yeah, that's
Right.
how they work it. It's a 60-minute hour of work, and then once you do that full hour, then you get your break.
Okay, and then the next, then did you go another continuous 60 after the 5?
Exactly. And it gets to be a little confusing down the road because you really have to track the time. But I have all that set up ahead of time. So I'm just looking at charts, and I have people who are there just to say, okay, that's another hour, take your break, that sort of thing. Because I don't rely on myself to think that much when I'm doing something for 50 hours straight because my brain is somewhere else.
Okay. What sacrifices, injuries, relationships, etc., have you had to make since you started your record-breaking endeavors?
Breaking records is very time consuming, as you know, and depending on the record and what you're getting ready for and what the commitment is as far as training and research and design, all that sort of thing. I've actually been really fortunate that I have not really been seriously injured. I am a professional stuntman too, so I've been injured much more playing sports. I played football for 20 years. I was a skydiver for 10 years. I was an amateur kickboxer for 7, 8 years. So I've been injured much more doing those, participating and training in those sports than I really ever have with a Guinness World Record or a world record. But as far as relationships and that sort of thing, I've lost relationships over the years because of it. I've had people tell me that I'm crazy, that I'm an idiot. What is wrong with you? Why on earth would you want to do something like that? And it's always actually giving me more fuel to do it when somebody says that. I've had good friends just say, you know what, there's something wrong with you. I don't want I don't want anything to do with what you're doing. And I've said goodbye to friends over this. So there definitely there are a few things. There are sacrifices. I've got people in my family that think I'm crazy, but when I left Boeing to become a stuntman, they thought I was crazy too. So usually you're doing the right thing when people think you're crazy. That's kind of my attitude. You're on the right track when people are going, what are you doing?
I have to agree 100%. My side of that, usually a lot of my records involve another person because
Oh, that's right.
I'm throwing knives around that person. So usually the one who gets that question about how crazy are you
Right.
is the girl, not me.
Oh,
Okay, we'll move on. What's your worst injury?
my worst injury, and I'm assuming we're just talking about world records.
Yes. Record.
Man, I really haven't had any serious injuries. I've pulled some muscles and I've gotten some cuts. Like just recently when I did the vinyl record again, I sliced my finger open pretty good on one of the broken records. But thinking back, well, honestly, now that I really think, the first world record that I did, which was the punch bag marathon, I really destroyed my knuckles on my hands for punching. I threw over 110,000 punches in that 36 hours. But I was new to the game. I didn't realize you just had to make contact, and I was punching really hard. And those 100,000 punches over that 36-hour period really tore my knuckles up. So I realized when I did the 50 hours, I don't need to punch that hard. I don't need to wear wraps. I don't need to wear 16-ounce gloves. I can wear lightweight, breathable gloves, and I can just tap the back. And so probably that first tore my hands up for about 2 weeks. I couldn't use my fingers or my knuckles. I had ice on them. I didn't have to go to the hospital, but man, I was a mess for about a week or two.
You certainly learned on that one.
Yes.
Okay, tell me about the book you're writing. A little more than I know you mentioned it before, but what's do you have a title for it? What's the theme of the book?
Yeah, it's called A World Record Breaker's Journey. Passion, addiction, or obsession. And I came up with those 3 words to explain it because those 3 words really are a great explanation. And I think it's a little bit of all of those: passion, obsession, and addiction. I think if, and you've been doing this a long time, David, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between all 3 of those words, passion, addiction, or obsession. But I think all 3 of them are good words to describe what we do. There's a drive behind what we do. And I lost track. What was the specific question again?
I'll
The
ask you about the book.
title of the book.
But you just say something very interesting there. Passion, obsession, addiction.
Yeah.
Because people will say to me, "Well, you had one, second one. Why now 17 different records? Why 44
Right.
set broken?" Because it's a passion, an addiction, and an obsession, and it's very hard to be satisfied with one or two.
Right.
And you sit back and you think to yourself, "I think I'll do another one, or maybe I'll try and break one of my other ones." And what people don't realize is that breaking a record is significantly harder than setting a record,
Yes.
especially if it's your own, because presumably you didn't sandbag the first one you did.
Right.
And
Right.
you gave it your best. And now a TV show will call me and say, "We'd like you to come on the show. Will you break one of your records?" And I look at him and say, "You got to be kidding.
Yeah.
I did my best. A world record is your best.
Exactly.
Sandbag." And okay, now you want me to come on there and do beat myself?
Yeah.
It's not so easy. If I had to beat someone else and I knew I could beat them, that's different than trying to beat myself.
Right. Right. And I experienced that years ago in 2017 when I got invited to be on the Today Show. That was also one of the harder records that I broke, which was karate chopping full-size watermelons with my bare hands. And I ended up doing 48. Of course, they took 6 away because I didn't keep my fingers completely straight in a knife hand karate chop. But I was able to get 42, and I broke the world record, and in front of a large TV audience, which was very nerve-wracking. But getting back to your original question about my book,
yeah,
the book, I've got all these stories and pictures, and you know how it is, David. When every time you do an attempt, there's so many stories and so many people behind it that you never hear about. And I thought it would be a great idea, and I've been really good at taking pictures at all of my attempts. So what I've done is I've made every single attempt a chapter, whether it was a successful attempt, an unsuccessful attempt, a disqualified attempt, it doesn't matter. They all get a chapter, and they all get stories, and they all get pictures, a lot of pictures. And it just basically is chronicling my life as a world record holder. And
great.
It's something that I've always wanted to do. I've been waiting years and years and years, and finally I've met the right people to help me put the book together. And I'm in the process of that right now. I'm proofreading another 6 chapters tonight, and it's a lot of work. It's like a world record. Writing a book is like a world record attempt. It really is.
That's correct. It's a challenge unto itself.
Yes, definitely.
I'm going to ask you one more. What do you do for fun when you're not working or planning to break a world record?
Well, probably I would have to put at the top of the list still is road cycling and mountain biking. Now, I've experienced some now, as far as getting injured, this is a different topic. Most of my injuries that I've had in my life, I've experienced by riding a road bike. I've had a lot of crashes. I've had several surgeries. And it's really taken a toll on my body over the years, but man, I love it. I just love getting on a road bike and getting out and riding, 50 miles or 100 miles and just riding all day long, especially here in California. It's beautiful out here. And, there's all kinds of different rides. There's century rides and double century rides, but I have a group of guys that I've been riding with on Sunday mornings for the last probably 20 years. And there's 5 or 6 of us, and we've been really good friends for years. And then when we're done riding, we go back to my friend's house and we have a couple of beers. And for me, it's always been a great way to blow off some steam and have some fun. And I've been doing it for a long time. So I would have to say riding a bike for me is very, very enjoyable. Plus I'm getting exercise and hanging out with friends. So that probably would be at the top of the list.
Okay, so let me plant an idea in your head.
Okay.
One of our prolific record breakers with Record Holders Republic is Patty Doyle from
Yeah, Patty.
great endurance athlete, incredible
Yes.
endurance athlete. And he does these challenges that he turns into records.
Right.
He'll cover a certain amount of distance with a particular backpack, 50
Backpack.
pounds,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Have you considered turning your hobby into a record by maybe doing a mountain bike or a road trip with a certain size backpack or weight backpack for a certain amount of time or distance?
That's a very good idea. I'm gonna look into that. I've never really considered that because I've got a list of records that I want to break in the future that's always in the back of my head. I'm always thinking about it. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? So I'm going to add that to the list, and I will blame you for that, David.
Okay.
But you know, the interesting thing when you bring up Patty Doyle, when I broke the Punch Bag Marathon, my first world record was 24 hours. It was held by Patty, and I actually have broken a couple of his records, and he's broken a bunch of my records coming back after I broke his records. I've communicated with Patty many, many times, usually on Facebook or something like that. And he's a great guy. He's a great guy. He's the one who inspired me to write, because I read his book and I thought, wow, that's a really good idea. He's got, I don't know how many world records Patty has, hundreds, right?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
great. Well, see, I was drinking from this cup here, Felixstowe.
Okay.
That's where Dean Gould, the president and founder of Record Holders Republic, lives. And I
Right.
bought that cup when I went to visit him. And on that same journey, I met John Evans, the famous head balancer.
Oh, okay.
Things on his head.
I've
And
heard the name.
Patty Doyle. Had the pleasure of meeting him, and he's been here to my home a couple times.
Oh, fantastic. Well, if you see him again, tell him I said hello.
Well, I'll be sure to slap him on the back of his head for you. How's that? All right, Ron, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It looks like, wow, we consumed a good 30 minutes of this.
Wow.
I'm going to see what I can do about getting this up on the recordholdersrepublic.com
Awesome.
and recordholdersrepublic.co.uk site.
Okay. And I hope I didn't ramble on too much. I love talking about this stuff, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. This is really the first time we've met kind of face to face. So
Yes.
It was a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to more of this and breaking more records and being in touch with you as well.
Same here. Thank you, and over and out.
Okay. Take care, David.